Welcome to the Dr. Leadership Podcast, where the DR stands for Driving Results. Our focus is weekly conversations around life and business relationships and the important leadership qualities for both. These concepts and qualities will help you drive positive results in both your business and personal lives. A weekly connection point to help business leaders develop individual contributors, managers, and executives on your teams. We also will tie in concepts around family focus and life lessons to help you drive success in your personal life. Welcome to the Dr. Leadership Show. Let's get after it. Good day, everybody. Welcome to the Dr. Leadership Podcast. The doctor is in. Another great week in the books. I hope you're having an awesome week wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Hope that things are going your way in life. I wanted to get started today and kind of peel off and continue the conversation of the last episode, right, about leading in a pissed off world and kind of tie some things in on that. But a couple quick reminders before we jump in is that we can be reached for content, ideas, feedback, etc. at our email at drleadershipresults@gmail.com. And do remember to check out the website at www.drleadershipresults.com. A little bit about myself, some other services we offer. You can check out prior episodes if you want an easy way to find them all. It takes you right out to our hosting site. And then, of course, you can click that fancy little button that says subscribe, and there's some unbelievably good content out there, not because of me, but because of the guests we've been having, actually released out to the public this week, just as an example of the type of people we're getting to participate here. My interview or conversation with Super Bowl winning Hall of Fame NFL coach, broadcast booth extraordinaire, Coach Dick Vermeil, who won a Super Bowl with the St. Louis Rams, took the Philadelphia Eagles to a Super Bowl, coached UCLA to a Rose Bowl win, was in the broadcast booth with Brent Musburger. Those of you that are younger, look up Brent Musburger, a world-renowned broadcaster, did with Coach Vermeil Super Bowls and Rose Bowls and all sorts of different things in the football space. And Coach comes on with us, spends about 50 minutes with us, talks about his leadership principles. Great stuff. So it's out there available for you. For a small investment, man, you get access to a lot of good people. Pretty soon here, we're going to be loading up some goodies that you can get to, some swag, some Dr. Leadership sweatshirts, T-shirts, things of that nature. I've engaged my youngest daughter to, she said, hey, let me help you with Instagram because I don't get it. I just don't get it. And she knew I was struggling. And she says, you need to be selling some swag out here on this stuff. She's got a bunch of friends down the Charlotte area in her sales office that have been listening. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen down there in the Charlotte area that have been listening. And they had some questions about, hey, man, how do I get a sweatshirt like yours? So working through that too, but check it out and would love feedback. We're hitting 40 countries, 2,000 downloads have happened now, some good things going on. We're creeping up. And again, this is just all about having some fun and helping people with some little nuggets that may come into a place where you can use them, think about them, etc. And again, our focus is not just, we call it Dr. Leadership. It's DR Leadership. The DR stands for Driving Results. Listen to the play-in. But it's about being a good individual contributor, a good manager, a good leader, executive, but also your personal life. A lot of these things tie in, and I'll tie that in a little bit today, a little bit more business focused today, following up. But there's all sorts of good stuff here. It's all just about be a good person. We talked last week about 2 weeks ago, leading in a pissed off world. And I want to kind of continue on that in kind of a tangent, not a tangent, but a derivative market. Okay. Something that is impactful on making things better in this pissed off world. Everybody's got their head down, can have a cloud of doom, etc. And the key to getting out of that is just, utilize some humor in life. There's all sorts of studies. I'm going to touch on a couple articles, a great article from Inc. magazine, another great article from Harvard Business Review. I've said those are a couple periodicals I kind of check out for content. Some of this stuff's 5-6 years old, but I think it's vitally important right now to just we can do some serious good by not taking ourselves so damn serious. And I say that to my team members and the people that are on the team with me all the time is, man, don't let this stuff get to you. And I struggle with it too. I don't have this all figured out. This thing called podcast, Dr. Leadership Podcast, also keeps me from, loading the rifle and climbing to a bell tower and taking people out, kind of a sanity check as well. And as you can see, I do try to use humor. And I think it's vitally important for people to just, man, don't take yourself so damn seriously that you aren't approachable, etc. So what I would say this, in my 34 years, I've been doing this a long time, been in the business world for 34 years, out on my own, worked for parents and such growing up, and was in the business world then and saw a lot of interesting things there. And talk about humor, holy cow, not suitable for work or listen on podcasts, some of the stories from there. But one thing that is critical, I think, from what I've seen, people that were in leadership positions and high caliber individual contributors, sellers, highly successful people of all types, a characteristic that they are very, very blessed with from a commonality standpoint is humor. And even more importantly, self-deprecating humor. Now, if you don't know what self-deprecating means, it's basically showing humility or picking on yourself, having a laugh at your own expense. And it does wonders in all types of relationships that you have, be it with your spouse, be it with your kids, be it with other family members, neighbors, business community, calling on people, trying to get them engaged with you in your business life, as a leader of individual contributors, as a leader of leaders. Just don't take yourself so damn seriously. It is just an easy one if you have a good sense of humor. Lay it out there. Now, I'm not talking about driving up to a meeting in a clown car and getting out with big shoes. I'm talking about realizing that self-deprecating humor and humor overall, laughing, do you know it releases the same effects, dopamine and chemicals in your brain, as the feeling of love? I was not aware of that. In my research, I found that out. Love's an amazing juice that's flowing through your body. There's not a stronger one out there. Humor, a laugh, having a good time as you lead or engage in life and building relationships is going to do a body good. So don't take yourself so seriously that you just are to people. You know what I mean? Have a great sense of humor, and I think some success will come. The Inc. magazine I want to touch on here for a minute. A good periodical, has some great stories in it every month. I don't utilize all of them by any stretch of the imagination. The material just keeps coming. But it's a great I had down on my list, when I first started getting ready to start this thing, I wrote down 75 topics for the first year and a half, what I wanted to touch on. And some of them are 2 episodes, some of them will be a quick hit 1 episode, etc. But having a sense of humor and leading with self-deprecating humor was one of my topics. I think I'm a humble guy, but one thing I think I do have is a really good sense of humor. I actually thought about stand-up way back when in college and things. I was kind of a little bit the class clown growing up, always respectful. I'm not talking about being disrespectful or anything like that, but having a good sense of humor lightens up a room, and there's lots of good that comes out of that. But what Inc. says is, what a self-deprecating sense of humor says about your emotional intelligence. And this is where the tie-in of the pissed off world comes in. If you are a leader that has extremely good emotional intelligence, the Inc. magazine actually says emotional intelligence, EQ. If you ever see the initials EQ, the acronym EQ, it's emotional intelligence. The Q isn't I, like intelligence, but it's kind of like the University of Nebraska. The N on the side of the football helmet stands for knowledge. To all my Big Ten fans out there that are Nebraska Cornhusker fans, the EQ stands for emotional intelligence. But it has been deemed a more powerful predictor of a person's success than his or her intelligence, IQ. Now think about that for a minute. Having a great emotional intelligence capacity, and humor and self-deprecating humor ties into this in a minute, is more impactful than how smart you are. And I see this happen all the time. I will say this, I'm blessed to be around a great set of leaders in my business life. I am very fortunate to have family members, my spouse, my kids. They all have good senses of a great sense of humor. Now, in the business world, I'm talking about these people I work with all the time, and the highest performing individual contributors, every single one has an awesome sense of humor, and at their own expense at times. They enjoy having a good time. That is a contagion that can spur on more good interactions and relationship building. It boils down to the fact that human relationships are the very fabric, of business. You have to, and this is what the Inc. magazine says, a leader has to be able to better understand, connect, empathize, and negotiate with others. It's crucial in your personal ladder climb. Now, what the personal ladder climb means is progressing in your career. If you want to take on more and more responsibility, if you want to be a person that's entrusted with leading or carrying on bigger responsibilities in a sales territory, a bigger territory, calling on bigger accounts, whatever, having a strong emotional intelligence is critical. It's more critical than how smart you are. You can teach things to everyone, just about everyone, I should say. The gift of humor is not blessed to everyone. Some people try too hard. Some people it doesn't come across as real. It doesn't come across as that they truly feel that way. But those that have it have been very, very successful around me. All I can tell you is the examples I've seen. And that's been true throughout my entire life. I go back to working for my dad, and there were 3 or 4 sales guys there. There was one guy named Bob, and just absolutely hysterical. Won't bring up his last name, but he was known as the Joke King. Every time I saw him from the age of 10 to 22, working on weekends or during the week, he would come up to me and he would have a new joke, mostly age appropriate. I started getting all the unappropriate stuff at the age of 14 on. I mean, let's face it, I was cleaning union toilets and involved with the union guys. The dirty calendars were hanging. This is back when we still had spines and we didn't let everything offend us. So I was used to some raw humor, but he would just make me laugh. You know what he was? Very, very well off because he was able to build great relationships. So climbing the ladder, being successful, having a family that is well-rounded, not taking yourself too serious as a husband, as a father, as a son, as a daughter, as a wife, as a sister, as a brother, insert relationship here, is critical for everyone's success. Emotional intelligence is indispensable. So Daniel Goldman is in this. He's a science journalist, and he breaks emotional intelligence down to 5 basic items. And the first one is self-awareness. And this is critical. A lot of times, if you go way back to the beginning of the podcast, the first episode, Why Be a Leader? It was rough. Hey, I was trying to find my legs. But one thing I talked about is narcissism, and if you want it to all be about you, don't be a leader. You're not going to be good at it. If you are, you're leading through fear and intimidation, and you're always right, and those types of things. It's just not healthy. 10% of the time, those people are going to be successful. People that don't take themselves as seriously and understand that they can have weaknesses and they can be vulnerable and they can open up to people, you're going to have far greater successes because you're building trust, you're building these relationships based off of your self-awareness. I don't have it all figured out, right? Know your emotions, know your strengths, know your weaknesses. It's okay. No one is perfect. Hey, Tom Brady throws interceptions. Hey, Michael Jordan misses shots. Hey, Johnny Bench didn't hit 1,000. It's okay to not be 100% on everything, and it's even better if you can let others know that you aren't perfect. It will lead to relationships and growth and trust and all the things you want in your personal life, in your business life, in your interpersonal relationships with people that don't report to you, it's a great thing to have, is great self-awareness. The other thing he brings up, this science journalist Daniel Goldman, is self-regulation. You have to be able to control your own emotions. So emotional intelligence isn't just about understanding that you have some weaknesses, but it's the ability to control your impulses. And I always say, lead with data, not emotions. In decision making, that is critical. But being able to lower the barrier a little bit, allow emotional intelligence to play and have some fun is part of that. But also, don't let your impulses as a leader, if someone starts to say something that you feel is wrong, you don't say, yeah, that isn't right. You just don't do things like that. That's an impulse to try to be the big man or the big girl on campus, big woman on campus here, and you can't take that approach with people. So be self-aware, keep those emotions in line, because there's good utilization of emotions and there's bad utilization of emotions, right? Social skill is the next thing he talks about. And man, if you are in any type of business, if you are in any type of family environment, social skills are critical, right? You manage relationships that move people in the direction you want them to go. You're trying to lead them to. Now, I'm not talking about manipulation here. That's not what this means. Social skill means that you're able to build relationships, you're able to develop a skill, can be humor, can be vulnerability, can be self-deprecating statements, but you have, by utilizing those social skills, the ability to talk to anyone, the ability to listen and truly hear what people are saying, is a social skill that gives you unbelievable advantages in anything you would do in your life. If you are likable, if you have the skills that truly come across and show servant's attitude, sense of humor, I can see what's wrong and admit that we have challenges, not thinking that you have to be perfect. I'll touch on that a little bit more in a couple minutes. All of those skills bring people into your circle, into your trust zone, into your little orbit of, I want to follow that person, or I want to engage with that person because they got it going on. By utilizing your social skills through humor and self-deprecating humor, the Inc. magazine, gentlemen, thinks that you're going to lead people a lot easier than you have in the past. You're going to get results that you would not get if you didn't utilize these types of things. The next thing he talks about, and I talk about it all the time, be empathic. Empathy is an invaluable tool to have in your tool chest as a leader. When you're making decisions, when you're changing directions of your organization, let's face it, we're coming out of 3 years of pandemic, economic turmoil, global wars and conflicts going on, mass immigration movements around the world. The world is in complete disarray. And I wish that our political leaders would have a little self-deprecating humor and get in a room with each other and go, we aren't 100% right, you aren't 100% right, let's drive toward the middle here. Quit worrying about who gets to put the points on the scoreboard and start doing corrective things for our country, because it's falling apart at the seams. It's pissed off, right? Leading in a pissed off world. You got to understand and be empathic about other people's feelings, especially when you're making decisions. This is key to initiatives being successful, right? We're about ready to roll out new comp plans. We're about ready to roll out new quotas for the year. If we don't get this right, we're going to have poor productivity until we get people's heads back on right. When you're a leader, and I'm not talking about personally here now, but giving some feedback to others, when you're trying to drive growth, you don't cut to get to growth. There's never been a number that's been divided that got bigger after you divide it. You have to understand what is driving, be it profitability, be it operating income, be it just the well-being of the organization, driving change, etc. You have to understand that a fired up, group of team members is going to attain goals much faster, if ever, if you're not fired up. If they believe that you have their best interest in play, now there's tough decisions that have to be made. I had to make a bunch of tough decisions over the last couple of years with my senior staff that I'm on, my peers. Some of them were good, some of them were bad. We didn't know what we were dealing with. Are we dealing with it was, let's lock everything up for 2 weeks was the first problem. Then it was for 2 months. Then it was for 6 months. Then it was for a year. Then it was, you can't work if you don't do this to your body and that to your body, etc. So we made some mistakes early because we thought we were dealing with a 6-month problem. Then we made some mistakes because we thought we were dealing with potentially a multi-year problem. So we have to be able to admit our mistakes, open up and say, hey, we see what's going on. We understand that the problems that this thing's created. But as we're trying to come out of this thing and get back to historical numbers and grow, as an individual, you need to understand that more is going to be asked of you, right? That's how the world works. But as a leader, we need to understand that we need to have the mental position of those we're asking to attain goals in the right spot. That doesn't mean paying them all the money in the world. That doesn't mean not having directive from up above and asking people to do things that they may not be comfortable doing. But what it is doing as a leader is ensuring that you aren't making a decision in your own mental vacuum that, well, they ought to just go do it, or this is going to happen, or only focusing on one cell in a spreadsheet, one cell in the P&L. A lot of people start to focus down to cost or start to focus down to expense. You have to understand what drives expense is top-line revenue divided by how much it costs you to drive the revenue. If you don't drive the revenue, your cost as a percent is going to go up automatically because you aren't driving the revenue. So you impact the cell that you may be trying to adjust or what you're trying to affect in your growth numbers by having fired up people. If you're putting more in the funnel on top in the business world, your results are going to be better down through profitability, down through operating income, etc. As an individual contributor, if you're fired up, don't let the little stuff get to you. You're going to be viewed. People feel that vibe, right? They feel your confidence. They feel your happiness, and it's a contagious thing. So if you're a father, a mother, and you're trying to lead your family, your kids and things, to do appropriate behaviors by getting them to buy in and understand that you understand it's hard. Let's talk about social media interaction now for your kids. I don't want you on the phone after 9 at night. I don't want you on the phone before 7 at night. Here's your 2-hour window. Get it done. There's nothing good happening on social media for a 15, 16-year-old set of kids, for a 10, 12-year-olds. First of all, don't give your kids phones when they're 8, when they're 10. Destined for failure. You are creating a frigging anxiety-ridden childhood, I promise you. None of that stuff's real. I'm off track. But happiness, empathy, understanding other people's feelings, giving it consideration, talking through, I understand how you feel about this. This is why we need to do it. I myself need to change and do better. This self-defecating, that's funny, self-deprecating humor is going to be an impact on their attitudes as well. Motivation's the last thing that they talk about in this Inc. article. Motivation is driven to achieve for the sake of achievement. If I get this thing right, if we get this thing right as a senior staff, rolling into the next fiscal year, because this last fiscal year has been mentally tough on a lot of people for a lot of reasons, not just my business, other businesses as well, home life, personal relationships with some of my family members. They are in dark places because not my own personal direct family, but other members of my family have just see the world as nothing but negative, and their emotional well-being is in question right now. That's not good. So we got to get it right this year. We got to start looking optimistically. Glass half full. The glass is refillable. Bring your own sunshine. Don't be a ho-hummer. Look at the positive. In every interaction, there should be something positive that you can lean on. But if we do it right, the motivation factor is going to be tenfold. Do you know how football teams that are the underdog beat the overdog? The person that's favored? Personal motivation. Driven. Chip on their shoulder. I'm going to show you. I'm going to get respect. Those things happen every single day. You see people show up and pull off extraordinary things. How about, some of you don't remember, but the Miracle on Ice, right? The Olympics when the U.S. beat the Soviets. Bunch of 18 to 22-year-old no-names, because we didn't allow our professional hockey players to play in the Olympics at that point. Bunch of no-names took on a group of lifetime playing professional athletes from the Soviet Union. We also beat the Czech Republic, who was supposed to take us down. We beat everybody in front of us because that coach drove belief. That coach got them to understand that if they are motivated, they possess the skills to take on the greatest in the world. It's a great example. So when you're driving and you're leading and you're trying to get yourself pumped up or whatever, motivation is a critical component to make sure the outcome is what you get. The outcome you desire is the outcome you get. Okay? The second thing I wanted to touch on here was a tie-in from Harvard Business Review has an article that goes even deeper about self-awareness. So self-awareness is all about self-deprecating. It makes people more approachable. And I think this is key. It builds trust and it makes people feel like you don't think you're something special as the leader. Our CEO is very good at self-deprecating and bringing people into the fold right now. He does a very, very nice job. There's other leaders inside the organization, other parts of the business, not mine, that are not real good at that. They don't lower their guard, and people don't trust them as well. They don't feel that they're looking out for the best interest of anybody but themselves. There are senior leaders inside my company. Sometimes I've got to give another division the opportunity instead of my division, how our business works. And I need to embrace that because it's the right thing for the overall community, which is the company, right? It's better for the village. Then there's others that will go out of their way to keep my line of business out of it, simply because they're trying to get as much into their pocket as possible. Money isn't everything, folks. You're degrading the interactions that can drive better results when you do things like that. Just be a good, driven human being that cares for others, and lots of good stuff's going to come to you. Lots of good stuff. So it builds trust. It promotes a psychological well-being for yourself, having this self-awareness. Think about this. The anxiety it takes to drive toward perfection. Perfection is impossible to attain. It can't be maintained. You may get one thing perfect, but to maintain perfection all the time is an unachievable goal. Back to social media. We're putting these anxieties on these kids that if you aren't liked enough, fear of missing out, FOMO, if you don't look like this, if you don't have a body shape like this, what we are doing to our young girls and women in this world right now is appalling. The women's movement has been driven back 100 years with some of these things that are going on around who can participate in what, etc. We've lost our friggin' minds. These young people are moldable and are being created into expecting things from themselves that aren't attainable. If you don't look a certain way, if you don't act a certain way, if you don't talk a certain way, if you don't wear certain clothes, really the label inside the shirt determines if you're a good human being or not. Influencers. What a joke. Now, they're making a lot of money. Good for them, I guess. They aren't happy because guess what's going to happen? Their impact is going to diminish because they can't look like that even with all the filters on the phone forever. It's all fake. So being real, understanding your own issues, your own weaknesses, those types of things are going to make you far more approachable. And the other thing it's going to do is it's going to take the actual anxiety in your life down. Don't take yourself too seriously. Having a sense of humor is critical in this world. If you want to help impact your feelings of not being happy, not being in a right state of mind, feeling the world's out to get you, playing the victim card versus driving yourself toward victorious approaches in life, I'm sorry. Dig yourselves out of that hole. If you're young, set the phone down and understand you are loved and you are beautiful the way God made you. If you are in business and you're an individual contributor, understand that a positive outlook is going to do nothing but increase your sales. If you are in a business if you're in a nail salon business, if you're happy in front of the customer, they're going to refer you more often. If you bitch and moan about stuff all the time in anything you do in life, people will start to avoid you. You're a bummer. You're a bummer to be around. That's not fun. I'm not going to do it anymore. It happens every single day. Now, talking about humor, in my 34 years, there have been some unbelievable funny things that have happened. This one's not so much self-deprecating, other than just a really, really funny story that I want to share. So, when I was an individual contributor in Des Moines, Iowa, in the early 90s, we all had our Chevy Astro vans, right? I've talked about that before. Got to deliver our own equipment. It can be rather cold in the Midwest in January, February. This was around the holidays. Another gentleman had gone out and started his van up in the parking lot. Warm it up. Let me try to get it out of the wind chill factor, get it up over freezing before I go out there in my coat. Was heading down to a customer appointment about 10 o'clock. Now, I've always been, I said, kind of the class clown, so I'd play jokes on guys and have some fun with them. And we've done and moved cars before, right? You go out, they started up the car, move it across the street in the parking lot on the other side of another van where they wouldn't see it. This had happened to me. I had done it to others. So I'm sitting there making some phone calls, returning phone calls from the day before I go out, because I don't have a cell phone. It's 1991, 1992. So I'm making some phone calls, and up walks, his name's Brian. Brian walks up and goes, "Taylor." I hang the phone. I go, "What?" He goes, "Where's my van?" I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Seriously, dude, I've got an appointment in 30 minutes. It's a 20-minute drive. I started, warmed it up. Where'd you move my van?" I said, "Brian, I didn't touch your van." "No, seriously, where'd you move my van?" I said, "Brian, I did not touch your van. Promise you. Not messing with you." Kind of go back to the phone. He goes around the outside of the cubicles, asks Pat and asks Derek and asks Troy and all the other guys on the team, Michelle, "What'd you do with my van?" Nobody touched his van. Swear to God, nobody touched his van. So finally, the reality comes to him. Someone stole his van. So he calls the police. The police come. The police come over to me and say, "Listen, we've been told that you've moved vans before. You really haven't moved this van, right?" I said, "No, sir, I have not moved this van." So Brian's got to call his customer. He's late. Going, holy cow, calls his wife, says, "Can I come down and get the car?" Goes down and gets the car, calls her at work. "Can I come down and get the other car?" We had to drive him to his house to get the keys. It's just unbelievable. About 2.5 hours later, the police call, say, "We found your van." Where's my van? It's at Gene's Place on the east side of Des Moines. Gene's Place is a local watering hole. And when I say a local watering hole, it's a hole. Got the best wings in town, but it is a hole. Okay? Opens at 10 a.m. for all those dedicated customers. You go in, the lights are dark, etc. We go down to look at this van, and there is his van. It has got white picket fence posts sticking through the grill. It is dinged up on every quarter panel on the car, leaking fluids. It had been stolen by a bunch of kids because it was so cold. School was closed. They stole this van, drove through yards and everything. As they were driving through yards, they were hitting fences, starts losing fluids. The engine's not running. They pull over into Gene's Place. And guess what? This is where the story gets unbelievable. So everybody knows I was in the copier business back then. Well, one of the local, I will not name the vendor, a local service technician had decided that it was a little too cold to be working, had left his company car running in Gene's Place parking lot, went in to grab a bite, have a bunch of drinks. They stole the competitor's car. So 2 cars in a row stolen by these kids were copier. One was a rep and one was a tech for another job. That guy lost his job. He's standing outside freaking out because he's been drinking at lunch, which is a no-no. His car's running. They stole it. They were on their way down the road to hit some more fences and drive through yards. You can't make it up. Now, the humor of that is great because I get a chuckle out of it and I get to share it with you, and hopefully you got your dopamine hit for the day off of something like that. It's just a crazy small world, but we all have to remember you can't take yourself too seriously. Brian couldn't do anything about that. He got a new van out of it. Insurance paid to replace the van. The car seat was still in there for his newborn baby, so he got the car seat out, was able to get all of his materials out. They had cleaned out everything else, stolen his sunglasses, stolen all his pens, stolen everything out of the thing. But the lesson in this is that you can't take yourself too seriously. That was an uncontrollable. He can't do anything about it. So as you go through this week, as you go through the next month, as you go through life, in your personal life, at home, wherever you are, don't take yourself so damn seriously. Life can end at any moment. Yesterday is the past. Tomorrow is the future. Today is a gift. That's why they call it the present. Remember this. You're all awesome. Keep that shit up. Talk next week.